So, in the next 1 hour, let's talk about something very serious, which demands your attention, full attention, to listen and observe. Please don't accept it or deny it. Just listen and observe. Observe yourself. We are really serious most of the time, aren't we? There are so many escapes all over the place, all kinds of entertainment, news, TV, internet. The mind keeps escaping all the time. This world, this make-believe world, is based on so many thoughts, ideas, fantasies. Please observe in yourself how easy it is to run away. But when you are running away, the issue stays here. When you come back, the issue is still there. So this moment, can you just listen with full attention? Because we are going to talk about something very serious, about life and death. It is really something about life and death, isn't it? The quality of living at this moment. Nobody can help you at all. Only you yourself find out how to live now. So please don't agree or disagree. That's one of the most horrible things ever we can do. Because when you agree or disagree, your mind is into words. But when you see the fact together, nothing to agree or disagree. Doesn't it? When we all see the same thing together, it is so. Nothing to agree or disagree. But look at our life. There's so many agreement or disagreement. The mind keeps arguing all the time. For what? Do you argue for truth? Is the truth arguable? When we look at life and death, nobody argue. You can't argue about death. So now can we set aside this argumentative mind so we can really look, learn together? That's called seriousness. When we are arguing, we are not serious at all because the mind is trapped in words, into numerous argument, statement, conclusions, views. But to our actual living, they are all nonsense. When we are really serious how to live a life meaningfully, joyfully, wholly, W-H-O-L-E, wholly, it requires our full attention, seriousness. it does not mean that you don't smile. Instead, when you are really serious, you can smile a lot. So please let go of all the associations with the word by paying attention to them, because the words are not the thing. But when the mind is trapped by the associations with the words, and the mind gets distracted, just like you are listening now, pay attention to your reaction to the verse. Don't get trapped. Because the speaker does not tell you something new. It is always here. So we observe together into the Saki to really look what is going on there. It is fairly urgent to do that, but most of us don't do that at all. Life is in crisis, but most of us don't see it at all. So this moment, again, the speaker is inviting you to set aside all the things you have known about yourself. All the things you pick up from books, from other gurus, or any philosophical or religion authorities. Just set aside all of them. Because they are all words. They are all thoughts. But can you observe yourself without thoughts? Can you do that? Have you ever tried that? If you really look at yourself, you perceive it. To perceive requires full attention. But if you are using thoughts, you are not observing, obviously, right? You can pick up the theories, conclusions from other speakers to analyze yourself. But that's not looking at all. You can analyze forever, but nothing is solved. So look is very simple. Just look with full attention to perceive. Just like you are hungry, you just go to food. You don't think about, oh, I'm hungry. Right? You perceive that you are hungry. Similarly, can you perceive yourself, what you are now? Fairly simple. But we have made it too complicated. Why? Isn't it because we are trapped in thoughts? A life trapped in thoughts is very complicated. Do you see it in your life? A life surrounded by thoughts is very complicated. It is never simple. There are so many nuances, endless. And the trapped in thoughts, you can't perceive. And most of us don't know how to perceive because thoughts are so prevalent. And we have lost the simple capacity to look. When you're walking in the park, have you ever really looked at a tree or not? To look at a tree demands your full attention. But when you look at a tree, the mind is trapped by the botanical knowledge about the tree, then you are not looking at all. Have you ever really looked at your friend, or your wife, or your husband, or anyone? When you're really looking, the mind is very empty. No images about him or her. Not a name, not a position, not the all kinds of labels. But most of us is looking through the labels, through the verse, through numerous filters. You see, we are not looking at all. We are always evaluating, judging, comparing. Therefore, we don't look at the people at all. We don't look at the tree at all. So, to perceive is a very important quality of the mind. Because we are human beings, which is still animal. To live is to perceive. So when the mind is perceiving, the mind is looking really objectively. Look at the issue. Look at all the challenges. Look at this monstrous world. Chaotic, turbulent, brutal, and meaningless. Just look at it as it is. It's fairly simple. But if one is looking carefully at this world, what most people are doing, they are always seeking positivities. Are you also doing that? Always seeking something positive. But when you're really looking, nothing is positive or negative. You just look. It is so. But when you are looking for something positive, you are escaping, aren't you? Because you want to rely on this pleasure from words to give you comfort, to give you a sense of fulfillment or satisfaction. And therefore, you are not looking at all. And we depend on positivities. And we are spoiled by them. And why this world is so surrounded by thoughts? Isn't it that because the mind is always looking for positivities from thoughts? That's why we are keep generating more and more illusions to make ourselves happy in an illusion. But the trouble is still here. The issue is never solved at all. Because we are still looking for positivities. We are not really meeting the issues. To meet the issue requires full attention. To really understand what is going on. Not to run away into some pleasant nonsense. Then we regard everything else that is not so pleasant as negative. You see how spoiled we are mentally. But when we are really looking at life, There's nothing positive or negative. Without that filter, which is called positivity or negativity, everything becomes simple. We just look, learn, understand what is really going on, act, change. All of this requires a mind that is able to give full attention without judging, without evaluating, comparing. Just look as what is. And one must perceive. Actually, the human thing is very simple. It's perceive. The humanity is the perception that is never twisted or distorted by thoughts. When we perceive, we know what is right and what is wrong. But we don't do that now. We follow the book. We rely on other people to tell you what is right or what is wrong. So we are always following some authorities to guide us, to tell us this is right, this is wrong. But as a human being, I can perceive directly. This garbage, this is wrong. It's not the thing humans should do. But we don't do that anymore. You see, thoughts are everywhere. So can one stop seeking positivities now? In this society, in this world, people are so isolated, deeply, fundamentally isolated and separated. Why? Have you ever really looked into it or not? Or you just merely accept it is so? And then we only stay superficial, right? Because we never go deep to see why are we so separated? Isn't it because we are seeking pleasure, seeking so-called positivities? And we have to understand this question: what is pleasure? Why do we seek it? First of all, the speaker is not condemning pleasure. He doesn't say it's bad or it's wrong, but he's questioning together with everybody here. What is pleasure? Why do we seek it? Why do we create it so devilishly? What is the source of the pleasure? When you are really living at this moment, are you seeking pleasure? Or when you're doing that, you can't be now. You see the difference here? When you are really at this moment, you can't take pleasure. You can't really seek pleasure at all. When you are seeking, you run away. Just observe yourself. When you are seeking pleasure, you are running away into some other places. This means pleasure comes from thoughts. So when you are seeking pleasure, you are pursuing thoughts. And it is a form of effort. But when the mind is into the pleasure, the mind doesn't realize that it's an effort. You see the trick here? It's very subtle, but it's very important. When you take pleasure, you are making effort. It sounds absurd, but when you really look at it, it is so. And the thought bring the pleasure, which is the result, give you a sense of fulfillment, a momentary satisfaction. And also bring a sense of me, the self, right? So we are seeking pleasure for that temporary, momentary gratification. We are doing this all the time. You see how much effort you have made to pursue thought. You don't see it because pleasure is so important. That's why you don't really see the effort behind it. Unless you see pleasure always goes hand in hand with pain. Perhaps it is not very obvious now. Let's go slowly into this. What are your issues? What are your trouble? Fear, anxiety, pressure, anger, aggression, loneliness, isolation, numerous issues. You name it. What are the sources of the issues? We take an example, fear. When you are really looking at the speaker, for example, now, without any judgment, when you are really listening now with your full attention, are you afraid? Now? No, right? You can't be afraid now. But when you are afraid, just observe. What kind of image are you holding on to? I'm afraid of losing my job. You see, that image, losing my job, brings fear. So it is still thought, isn't it? When you are ready now, you can't be afraid. Just like when you are ready now, you can't really seek pleasure. So thought breed fear. Is that clear? Thoughts can bring pleasure, but at the same time, it also brings fear. And You may think, oh, I want to hold on to these thoughts because these thoughts give me pleasure. But that thoughts I want to exclude because it gives me fear. That's what we are doing most of the time. Pursue pleasure, which is pursuing thought, and avoiding fear, which is avoiding thoughts. You see this struggle all the time. And we never succeed. When we want to make the thoughts that bring pleasure permanent, I want to hold that thoughts because it gives me pleasure. Then the mind is trapped in a pattern. And that pleasure becomes problems. You see, you want to take pleasure from thoughts and want to hold onto it. But as long as the mind holds onto the thoughts, the mind begins to resist to it and give you issues. So that's why we are always struggling to do this. On the one hand, we want to take pleasure from thoughts. On the other hand, we want to avoid the issues from thoughts. But we are always in the thoughts. When we are really at this moment, where is the pleasure? Where is the fear? Where are the issues? So, can one not seek pleasure in any way? It doesn't mean that you don't have pleasure, but don't seek it. When you are seeking it, you think that pleasure is the meaning of your life. That's why you always want to have more and more pleasure. And we get separated, right? Because everybody is deriving pleasure from different thoughts. Thoughts are always divisive, always fragmented, always unique. Then we don't meet at all. Everybody is achieving their own pleasure. And this world, this commercial world, is making this pleasure seeking more and more easily. From all kinds of entertainment, all kinds of commercial behaviors, commercial things. This society is very commercial. Really shocking. Anyway, but you see, all those is boosting the pleasure seeking all the time. In other words, this society is running in its way, keeps re-enhancing the separation between us. This society, this world, is feeding you with all kinds of pleasure. And you take it because it's so easy, isn't it? And we become more and more individual. We become more and more self-concerned, self-centered. And we don't know what is joy at all. That's the issue. We think pleasure is the only meaning of life. We don't know what is joy. When one is really knowing what is joy, one will let go of the pleasure forever. For sure, because you know what is really good. You don't really want these phony things, those fake things. To come upon the joy of living, you need a lot of work. You need to observe yourself tremendously. With this full awareness, superficially, we can be aware of all issues, the troubles, but that's not awareness at all. We must go deeply into what is actually taking place beneath the surface. Like observe the tendency of seek pleasure. And can you not do that now? At each moment, observe yourself. To really experience when you don't really seek pleasure, what is your life like? Please don't imagine it. Act and find out. Perhaps when you really do that, you will find happiness has nothing to do with pleasure. But if you are always seeking pleasure, you don't give yourself the opportunity to live and find out the truth. So this self-inquiry is not only into your psyche, but also look around. See what is actually taking place. When the mind is pursuing thought or avoiding thoughts, as we said at the beginning of the session, it is a form of effort. When one is really looking at oneself closely, seriously, one will find one is always holding onto an image about oneself, so-called self-image. Do you have that? What is that? What is called self-image? Do you think it's abnormal or not? Or normal or not? Because the whole society is talking about that all the time. How to build up a positive self-image. How to be a better yourself. How to be confident in the same category. But what is the self-image? Because we want to build up a positive self-image to take pleasure. Don't we? So we take a lot of pleasure from ourselves, don't we? And this world is doing the same. And we become more and more arrogant. And everybody have this sense of self-importance because we are holding onto that image. Is that also the reason that we are separated? Isn't it? Because you have your image, and you have your image, I have my image, and we all taking pleasure from our own images. And any insult, any so-called negative comment become a problem. The mind can be easily offended. The mind is become very neurotic. Do you see the problem here? On the one hand, you want to take pleasure from the self-image. But as long as you have an image of yourself, you are doomed to get hurt. That's obvious. And this hurt is very deep, isn't it? Perhaps that's one of the reasons you want to understand yourself. So why do we need to have an image about ourselves? What's the point? Because you are educated in this way by the society, by this environment? Why do I have this image? All the hurt, all the trauma, all the terrible memory is about this image, isn't it? I get easily offended, irritated. And I find it's more and more difficult to build up the positive images because the issues are mounting all the time. Perhaps that's the one reason that we become utterly individual. We are so craving this positive image, and the commercial world is doing everything to help you, quoted help you, to make a better, more unique, more brilliant self-image. What's the point of doing that? Do you see these absurdities of life? All the ego things is built around the self-image. And all this self-exhibition, self-expression is around this image. Look at this exhibitionism everywhere, on the street. Really ugly, really disgusting. All kinds of self-expression, in all kinds of ways. Are you influenced by that? Are you connected to that? So you think it's normal to have that image? That's the problem, isn't it? We are so conditioned to the environment. We don't question it. when man is really serious to live, one will find this self-image is totally rubbish, meaningless. The mind keeps accumulating more and more thoughts, images about me. For a momentary pleasure, but the fear, the anxiety, this deeper sense of despair is abiding. I'm not happy. That's the truth. Still, I don't know the joy. I don't have the chance. I don't give myself the chance to find out what is joy because I'm always seeking pleasure in all kinds of ways. So that's our practical challenge. Can one let go of the self-image? That's the real challenge, isn't it? Because the pleasure is there. The mind wants to be attached to that image. But all the issues come from that self-image. This is self-centered way of thinking. This individualistic way of thinking. I suffer. I'm tortured all the time. What's the point of living in that way? Is it possible to live a life without those images? Don't say now it is or it is not. You must find out. You must really do it. Live with it. Act. See what will take place then. See, when you really do that, see all the burden is gone. See what it's like. You can't imagine now. Because thought can't tell you the answer. You can only live. Then you can perceive it. So you see, when this self-image is there, you have this sense of me. And you always focus on the small issues all the time. But the real issue is the self-image, not the small issues. When you are trapped in the small issues, you are only re-enhance the me, the self-image all the time. So that's why, as people get older, the mind is trapped into more and more small, petty issues. Oh my God, too many small issues. Endless. But actually, the source is the self-image. If you want to solve the small issues one by one, you can't do that. Because the self-image keeps creating more issues. You can't finish it. You must find out for yourself whether it's true or not. Either those issues can be totally wiped out, or this day endless. Because the mind always thinks, maybe if I finish this problem, I can feel better. So the mind focuses on small issues all the time. But that's the wrong target. That's the scapegoat. The real issue is the self-image. You must say it's meaningless because it's a thought. Right? Your name, your position, your house, your pet, your everything, your fame, your title, your education, all the things. But they are thoughts. Do you say that they are thoughts? Or you don't want to acknowledge it? When you're really now, when we really let go all the images, this moment we are nothing. You might have achieved something wonderful in the past, the you, quoted the you. But now, without that image, you are nothing. Therefore, you are free. Isn't it? But you always want to holding onto that image of the past, my proud, my achievement. Then the sense of me is always abiding, and it is open to all hurts. So it is so simple, isn't it? Cut the root. When you really understand it, cut off the root. But this demands hard work from you. Because the whole world, the whole society is working in the opposite. You must observe tremendously. Very, very careful. Never follow this society. Be the outside of it. Stand alone. To look, understand, and negate. When you see it is false, you negate it, don't you? But when you have the pleasure, you don't want to negate it because you have the interest. That's the problem. And in this life, built up in society, you have so many vested interests. And that's the challenge to negate, to end. So you see, this all demands your full attention, hard work. What we can talk about is quite limited. But when you really do learn, find out, you will get more than what we can talk here. And you must do it now, at each moment. If you say, I will do it tomorrow, then you won't do it forever. You say, we like tomorrow so much. Tomorrow, future, everything will be better. And we keep deceiving ourselves through time. Oh, I will be better tomorrow. I will be better next year. And this time, this sense of time, keeps delaying everything. When one is really looking carefully at this society, this world, most people are living in time. They are talking much more than what they do. Or they rarely do something. They only talking, dreaming all the time. And when we are living in time, we can't really end the self-image, isn't it? Because time gives us a narrative. And who is the protagonist of the narrative? The me, isn't it? So we have the storyline. My past, my future. I will be better in the future. I will do this, I will do that. I want to achieve this. I want to have that. You see, when the life is trapped in time, the me is there. And when you are really listening, giving full attention now, there's no time, isn't it? Of course, we have the watch there. There's physical time. But psychologically, there's no time. So we have to go to this question very carefully. What is the time? You might be told by the scientists or philosophers of their nonsensical explanations. Can we set aside all of them so we can really look now? What is time? Physically, we have the time, right? The earth revolves around the sun. And we grow. We become older, become more mature. Hopefully, we are mature. So that's the physical time. It is undeniable, right? It is also the biological time because we really grew, we change physically. But why do we introduce this time into the psyche? Do you see the problem here? Why do we introduce the time into psyche? So we have this sense of time psychologically. And we have this development or evolution or all kinds of gradualness. They are all about time. Is that because we have invented the watch, the clock, so we can measure? We can measure by second, by minute, by hour. And then we bring that measurement into the mind. Which become a habit, a habitual thinking of yesterday, today, tomorrow. And our life is expounded in the time as a concept, where there's me all the time. When you think about time, you are thinking about yourself, aren't you? Oh, I'm busy now. Oh, I have schedule tomorrow. Or all kinds of business. And when you think that, how can you end the self-image? It's the same thing, isn't it? And in time, we measure. Oh, I will be better. I'll be happier. I will have more money. I will have more freedom. And that measurement is also the product of thoughts, isn't it? And when you measure, you are also seeking pleasure, isn't it? Because measurement leads to a result. And you want something fulfilling, satisfying. And the mind keeps measuring all the time. So we are becoming more and more calculating. evaluating, we are become very, very petty, aren't we? And this society is full of measurement in all kinds of subtle and appalling way. And because of measurement, we compare. Without measurement, we can't compare. And without comparison, we can't measure. It's the same thing. And we always do that mentally, do we? Compare this and that, compare myself with others. Oh, I'm so jealous. You see, all kinds of feelings around the measurement. So they are all re-enhancing the me in a subtle but also very obvious way, very big way. So psychologically, we measure. The time is the result of the measurement. We also compare ourselves with others, with the future of me, right? I want to be better, or oh, I have been better than my past. It's still the measurement. And in your work, in your life, they are full of a measurement of your performance, of this or that. They are all enhancing the self-image, which is the source of all issues. Can one live life without this time as a concept? Can one live a life without any measurement inwardly? Can one live a life without any comparison? You must find out for yourself by really applying it to your life. You see, life requires seriousness. What this society is imposing on you only make you have a bigger self. Of course, if you do nothing, if you just follow it, it is easy. But the mind is confused with the issues there. And to live life without issues, you must act. You must really observe for yourself. Don't be influenced by anyone, also the speaker. Observe for yourself. Stand alone. Really understand the limitation of thoughts, the danger of the pleasure, the trap of the self-image, and the loop of the measurement, and find out whether one can live a life with joy, with clarity. You see, the real life is not in thoughts. In thoughts, we are lazy. Beyond the thoughts, there's only diligence. Diligence. All these small issues, which we also need to solve, but they are not the main point. They can be very distracting because they can absorb all your energy, so you can't really observe. To give full attention to all the issues demands your energy, your full energy. But if you are busy with all the issues which are endless, and your energy is absorbed by them. Therefore, you can't really stop to look, as most people are so busy. Their energy has been totally absorbed by this monstrous society. And to stand alone means diligence. Never follow. Give your heart to the actual issues. Then the energy is saved, is gathered, which can be only used now. So living fully at this moment demands full energy. And you can make it if you really serious about this. And joy, clarity, wisdom, and all the rest of it is only at this moment.